All right, folks, thanks for joining us, everybody. So a couple quick changes real fast to our now 6th iteration. We won't have Dakota joining us. Big congratulations, Dakota, being first-time father. We're really excited for that. And then Jason just decided to be on a holiday. I guess some people just can't work 24/7 all the time. So I'll be covering as our host here. And with that, let me kind of do our quick introductions for folks who may or may not have joined us before. First, I'd like to welcome Jags. Jags has a long history of tracking cyber espionage groups and target attacks, analyzing those malwares, and writing long, dense papers that almost no one reads. Recently, he has absolutely become obsessed with AI, and it's destroying his life and anyone's lives around him. So, Jags, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy
and then
to
we've
be
got
here.
Drea London, Dr. Drea, as we know her. She runs our global incident readiness and response here at SentinelOne. She's a proud Orlandonian, and a functional musaholic. Her best friends are princesses, wizards, and a mouse, and spends almost every single day with them. If I remember right, to include today, right, Drea?
Yeah, I have a Disney wedding I'm going to after this. Plugging my buddy Ashton and his future husband TJ and their wonderful wedding that we can't wait for this evening.
That's cool.
Wonderful Wednesday wedding, WWW.
WWW.
Be allowed.
I just introduced myself. I'm Steve Stone. Drea, myself, and Jags all work on the same team here in threat operations at SentinelOne. So we're really excited, and let's just kind of dive right into it. I actually am pretty stoked for our first topic. Spent a lot of time looking at it. Jags, I'll kind of kick it over to you. SentinelLABS has a really neat blog out recently around LLM-enabled malware, how you folks have found it, just kind of the whole thing. Like, what are the big takeaways here?
I think the big takeaways is that, as we expect, right, AI is sort of shifting what everybody is thinking about in their development processes, their automations, and just basically the way we do everything. And just as you'd expect, we of course are starting to see malware that is leveraging sort of these LLM enabled workflows, more like dynamic coding and the kind of things that that we've been kind of hypothesizing about for a while, whether it's the LLMs involved in parts of lures or in the creation of the malware, or as part of sort of sidekicks as to how you do some of your ops. Or even leveraging LLM capabilities in malware. It's just getting spicy. It's getting interesting. So I think we're still in the early days of some of these things, and there's still a fair amount of hypothesizing as to what direction this stuff is going to take. But it's getting interesting to see how malware is going to get more dynamic along the lines of using LLMs.
I think one of the things that I probably found the most interesting between the blog and then the SentinelLABS LABScon presentation that I was tied to, which I thought was equally great. There was the whole discussion around, how do you actually find this stuff? It's one thing to talk about AI-powered malware, LLM use. It's a whole different beast to be like, let's just go discover it. And the part that I just thought was so fascinating, because it was so inherently true the minute I read it, but I had not thought about it, was the discussion the labs researchers had around hunting, not like we do for malware with code, but hunting for prompts. And it's almost impossible to hide bad intent in prompts. So I just thought that was probably the most interesting part of the entire pile of research.
Yeah, there's definitely something fascinating there with the prompts. I think it's also interesting to consider that something has to power this thing on the back end. So how much of this comes from stolen API keys and a lot of reuse around those things. So you've got a couple of different ways that you can latch onto this. And then, just see how good their prompt engineering actually is at the end of the day, if it'll pay off or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Andrea, you're kind of an interesting spot because your folks use AI a lot to do readiness and response. You also have to work against the threats that are going to be or are using AI. How do you look at that, just seeing both sides of that from your position?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a kind of unpopular opinion as far as what we actually see day to day, right? There's a difference in the research world where you're looking for something very specific versus responding to something very obvious, which is oftentimes what we're doing, right? So we're still seeing AI used in much more generic ways, whether it's, how we're writing phishing emails, et cetera. We're not seeing like polymorphic malware or anything like that. Very recently, we're going to talk about evil AI here in a second. So I don't want to cart before the horse on that, but it is a very different world from us as far as like, what are we experiencing from the customer calls us with a breach and we respond versus what our researchers are out there looking for being used day to day. And obviously our worlds do meld together, but we're just starting to really get to a point where we're seeing a little bit of an evolution. And I think that it's not too far from now where that evolution is going to really ramp up and we're going to see even more of it. So not looking forward to it, but definitely being prepared and using the folks and obviously our product and the smart folks in the room to help us with that. But day to day right now, as far as what customers are acknowledging and coming to us with is still really in the lower school realms. And I think it's mostly because they just don't know what to look for yet. And hopefully, we'll get there.
I think it's interesting, and I don't want to pull us into prediction season too early. I know we always all get kind of wrapped up in that when we get to November and December. But I think for both of you, if we look back at like the previous prediction season, like November, December, January, is this matching with what you thought attacker use of AI would be at this point in time?
I don't think it's
I'm trying to remember the predictions at this point.
My prediction was sort of similar to where it is right now, which is like, I think we're going to see some incremental change in evolution and use. But I didn't think that we were going to see some sort of, complete 360 or climb the mountain in 12 months. And I do think we're seeing that incremental increase in evolution in the use of AI from the threat actor perspective. But again, I completely recognize I'm reactive, right? Like I'm sitting here responding to things that are recognizable, and Jags and his folks are looking out for the things that are less recognizable. So they're probably going to have a different perspective, and that obviously evolves into what do we search for, what do we hunt for, how do we make our platform and our product better. But I do think it's somewhat in line with what I was thinking. Not that like I'm super, super smart, but I do think we're going to continue to see 6, 12, 18, 24 month incremental evolutions of what we see actually happening day to day on the scale that it comes to an incident response team and they're delivering response services versus researchers that are out there like searching for new information.
Right.
What do you think, Jags? How wrong is Drea? Tell the world.
I don't think Drea is very wrong about many things other than her, how intelligent she is. So to be fair, yeah, because you were saying that like I'm not that smart. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Sorry, and there goes the cursing. Anyways, we have to get one in every once in a while, and it's always mine. So what I would say is I think Drea's underestimating herself, but I would also point out that a lot of what we're seeing with this sort of evolution is it's going to be very interesting. And I'm not sure how much of it we can recognize on a one-to-one basis as much as I would expect to see it in volume, right? Like a lot of what we see with LLMs and a lot of the AI tooling that's coming around is it has the most disproportionate impact for like the bottom third of performers. It has a disproportionate impact for folks that have less resources. It has disproportionate impact for folks who wanted to do, had grand designs, but may not know the specifics of how to get something implemented. So on the malware end of things, I think there's this expectation that we're going to see this jump in capabilities that's just like insane. And I don't think that's going to be the case, at least not with the way that AI tooling is working right now, right? Like you can't get Claude Code to give you steady performance to save your life. Codex is, it'll break your project one day, it'll fix it the next day. But I think what we're already starting to see is just an uptick in volume. And I think that's going to be sort of the more interesting but hard to interpret sign about this adoption, which is how much more do we see just in the general volume of operations and modifications of code and so on, rather than do we see a threat actor that was operating at a D tier suddenly being an A tier? Like, I don't think I'm not seeing that capability for myself just in using AI. I don't know that we should see that being the case for most of the folks that are adopting it, but I do think we're going to get swamped with just the sheer amount of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that.
Does,
good, right?
No, I was going to say that's what AI does. It makes you more efficient, effective, right? So I think you're absolutely right, especially on the crimeware side. Sorry, go ahead, Steve. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to +1 as well. I think, the headlines are always like, well, they're like super great, strong intrusion groups. They're going to be like Voltron, 4D chess. And like, I just don't think that's the way it works. But I think your point about like the low level actors have capabilities that were just completely out of their reach. And I think even there, it's not even just so much around like the technical part, like they can write malware better, but like the three of us have talked about this before, like the things that distinguish like the nation state programs is as much about like they can read and understand multiple written languages. Like it's about code, but it's also like, do you speak language A and now you can operate in language B? Like that's a big deal. So if you don't have linguists, AKA you're not a government, like you just gained a whole capability that was absolutely out of your reach until AI showed up. And AI is really good at a lot of that stuff. Right. So all that to say, I agree with both of you.
There's too much agreement. Where's Dakota when we need him here?
Yeah, where's Dakota for the controversy? Okay, so I think we are pivoting over to the second half of the show, which is more of our lightning round. Let's keep doing this AI thread, though. Like, Drea, you kind of gave a little teaser mention of evil AI. What do you see as the big takeaways there?
Well, it's pretty prevalent. I don't want to take away too much from my OneCon presentation in 2 weeks. But no, I think
OneCon teaser. Like and subscribe.
Yeah. No plugs. No, but for sure, it's pretty prevalent. Using some techniques that are not really news to us. I mean, we're talking about malvertising, SOE poisoning, that sort of thing. But the interesting thread here, and I don't know if we're all going to find it super, super interesting. I sort of do, is like this concept of, I'm constantly being asked, how is AI being used, in breaches? And like all of our marketing people are like, Drea, come talk about this. And I'm like, it's like not that great really to give you, like, there's not, like, we're still figuring this out. This is interesting. It's not directly using AI technology, but it's using AI products to cloak the delivery of malicious code. And so I think what that's telling us is the use of AI and like business use or day-to-day use, whether it's at home or at work, is certainly a lot more than it used to be. And these are the software products now that are the most common and therefore the most targeted. And so we're seeing these tools specifically being used to deliver malicious code in very traditional ways, but in a behavior where the user would not recognize it. And it is at this moment extremely active. So it's something to keep an eye out for. Certainly, technologies and things out there are there to protect you. But when folks are saying like, how do you see AI being used by threat actors? This is a way they're using it. It's just maybe not the way you would assume or think that they would be.
It's not as sexy as you want it to be.
Right.
Yeah, like it's the masquerade, or it's the lure, or it's like all that stuff still counts. That's still the way it goes. Speaking of still counting, we are counting up to season 9 of Love is Blind is out. Are either one of you watching Love is Blind?
Oh my God.
No. So I do watch Love is Blind, but I am not currently watching Love is Blind. And it popped up on my little like AI, Drea, don't you want to catch up on this on the TV last night? And I remember thinking, there's a reason why I want to watch this. And I forgot it was because of our podcast.
Because of our podcast, of all things. Yeah, I too find myself being very I'm blindsided by this love of reality television. And I think, Steve, if anything, I'm glad Dakota's not here to indulge in this obsession that you guys have. But I am curious sort of what is it the refuge? Is it, are you getting to hide from reality in reality TV? Like,
So first of all, I love love. That's the big takeaway here.
okay,
The second
got it.
part,
That's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. All right.
anyone that knows me knows I love love. The part I love about Love is Blind, first of all, I think so much of reality TV is just, it's like wrestling. Like, it's like people are doing real stuff, but it's all scripted.
Right.
But with Love is Blind, there's just a couple of moments you cannot fake. Like, quick summary, people date each other, they can't see each other, it's all conversations. Then they meet for the first time. You can't hide that. You cannot hide that split-second reaction, or when they like go to each other's houses for the first time. Here's what you two are missing with season 9. I'm gonna give you 2 things to bring you in. One, there's one guy that is crazy into rollerblading. Like, all he talks about is rollerblading in the course of trying to convince this woman to be his wife. Plot twist, it's not working out super great.
No.
The other one,
Crazy.
and this one I think is super interesting. My old anthropologist hat goes on. There's a couple, and the lady makes significantly more money than the man. Like, not even exponentially orders of magnitude more. And it's really interesting to see like the struggle, and you never have that when it's the other way on these shows. It's never an issue if the man makes more money than the woman, but it's a huge issue, and I love seeing it play out live.
What's that movie where that happens? Crazy Rich Asians. It's such an interesting dynamic when that's the case, and I mean, I'm here for it, obviously.
Let me give you another one that I am here for. I saw this headline, and there was like, my literal first thought was, I cannot wait to talk about this on Just a Sec. So you got a bunch of hackers. I won't even dive into the group, but they did a big leak thing. And as part of that, there was a bunch of sensitive data around children. I think like 8,000 children in the UK were involved, primarily in the UK. And it caused massive backlash. And the hackers actually took it offline. They took the child-related data offline and left the rest of it. So one, I just love seeing where like, hey, some things most of us agree are out of bounds, and like you get those little touch points. But do you see this more as like an exception to the rule, or do you both think that like some of these hackers actually care about ethical bounds?
I don't think they care about ethical bounds, but I think that some hackers see this as a business. Like, I don't know, like, rewind a couple years, like Lockbit, I was like, man, this guy that's running Lockbit like runs this like he's a CEO. And I think that there is, to some degree, some threat actor groups that recognize their business is not functioning, and they're going to be unsuccessful if they continue to make, I almost said a bad word, Jags, but I did not. They upset folks. And so maybe they make, better comms decisions or whatever. It's also circa COVID, like, oh, we're not going to have healthcare. We're not going to do these certain things because we're upstanding citizens. I mean, what are you winning from that though? Like, okay, but you're still jerks. I can say a better word.
They finally got the air raid back. Okay.
They brought back the timer just because we're terrible at this.
Yeah, they're like, where is the air raid horn? What is going on? Somebody find it. I love that like there's just even fewer adults in the room as this thing goes on somehow. So we were going to talk about the ASA days, which I was super interested in, the 50,000 Cisco firewalls vulnerable to active exploitation, but we're going to drop that one because, as we all know this morning, the F5 intrusion has been, F5 has put their statement out. It's now hitting all the news. CISA's got a large piece out. I think there's 40 new CVEs published this morning tied to F5. So I guess maybe Jags, if you want to, like, what's the big takeaways here? And then I'll kind of pivot to Drea. Like, you've worked some of these breaches. How do these things go?
I can't curse for this. So I don't know what to say on this one. I mean, the sudden revelation of like 40 CVEs is sort of fascinating because it comes hand in hand with essentially, these actors have gotten in, they've gotten access to the source code, and they've gotten access to whatever vulnerabilities that were being tracked already by F5. So like you get into this kind of, this is where one of those rare situations where the dirty laundry gets aired as to like how you're handling your vulnerabilities as a vendor, how much of this were you sitting on that you could manage, correct, improve at a better timeline if somebody's paying attention or weren't. But more than anything, like as a huge vendor, as an important part of sort of that ecosystem, it's kind of terrifying because the long tail of it essentially becomes what's going to happen with that source code, right? Like how much of like Swiss cheese is that source code, and does this mean that these folks suddenly have access to, forget the vulnerabilities that were already being tracked, like how many come that we had not, that F5 was not aware of, that we're going to be seeing sort of popping off. So similar situation to what you get with Ivanti and Pulse Secure and Fortinet and all these terrible appliance vendors. Interesting times for F5 customers.
Sure.
So I'm going to do a pro gamer host move. I want to keep talking about F5. The next topic was Russians put some explosives in cans of corn and mailed them to Poland. Super bad corn bomb. Okay, let's talk about F5 again, Drea.
Let's keep talking about F5.
Yeah, because I think this is grown folk stuff, this F5 stuff. So
right, it's for big kids.
Yeah, this is big kid work. Like this is where the pros come in. I know you've worked events like this before, Drea. What are the pro tips you give to those in the audience? Like what is coming down the road with what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are all like kind of in the looming supply chain threat world, right? I mean, what we have to depend upon in the language that F5 positioned is actually quite clear. And there's certainly a lot we don't know. But it seems very clear that to some degree their development tooling, which I'm sure has some impact with their product code. I could be wrong, by the way, could be wrong, but like assumptions over here. I think that the biggest concern is something down the road on a major supply chain scale. 40 CVEs in a day is like alarming. And, we're all sort of sitting here waiting for Friday afternoon, as the incident responders, because that's when the stuff's going to hit the fan, if you will. But yeah, it's not good. And, the language that was used in that letter that they posted is quite clear that this is very, very serious. And I think it's meant to solicit the seriousness from the folks that read it. And we've all read a lot of these letters where they're meant to minimize impact and curb impact. These letters are meant to be very, very clear, whether it's for the purposes of insurance claims down the road or whatever. We don't know what their intentions are, but there is no question about the potential, tiny Armageddon that we might be about to encounter. And Jags, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but that's my suspicion.
No, not at all. Tiny Armageddon, I think, is a good way to put this.
So I'm going to do pro gamer move number 2. The next topic was supposed to be China increasing action against Taiwan. Title roll on, roll off. Check the box. I want to keep talking about F5 because I think this is super important. And Jason's the microphone to me, so I'm going to do whatever I want. I think one of the things that as I read through what's coming out today, and I know we're all like grabbing it as soon as it comes out, there was something I think is so underrated, but is such a huge problem. If you read like the CISA advisory to the US government, the very first tasking they're giving is go and do an inventory for all F5 devices, which is like, first of all, it's important. Like it's so important, but also like, isn't it 2025? It's just, I think it's such a good example of we want to talk about autonomous everything and the gee-whiz tech and all that stuff is real and true, but also most organizations struggle to even understand their own architecture and what they use. And now if they're vulnerable, like the whole house of cards comes down really quick if you're asking questions like, hey, who's using F5 appliances? Like that's days you're going to lose that you don't get back. And I wasn't surprised to see that. And I'm not trying to undercut that that's necessary, but I know everyone gets real tired of us kind of talking about the fundamentals and going back to the basics, but it just keeps happening. Like, I think as much as people are tired of hearing us say it, we're like super tired of saying it, but also it really, really matters.
Yeah, if I could solve asset inventory, I would retire. And I'm certain that probably will solicit a lot of LinkedIn messages that I will probably get from sales folks around the world that can solve asset inventory for me. Like, go ahead and please try. But I have done the enterprise side of cybersecurity, and it is, especially at scale, the most challenging thing to accomplish. And especially,
it's hard. It's not easy.
No, it's not. And nobody should suggest it is. Like it's one of those things where you have to give some grace and accept some vulnerabilities. Not literal like CVE vulnerabilities, but like emotional.
Unintended, yeah.
Yeah, but Don't accept your vulnerabilities. No, but I think that everybody has that same perspective, Steve. And I think it's really important to. I think that they're recognizing that in that language. It's kind of interesting.
Well, I think that ding was for us to go back on topic, but I'm just super enjoying like having complete control. So I'm not even going to go back to the last topic. They can show the timer if they want. I'm going to call wildcard topic. Drea, I know you're going to love this. Jags, I'm pretty sure you're going to hate this. How about those Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football? I know Warwick really enjoyed seeing that. What do we think? What are the takeaways?
Well, I was jealous that you were there. So you guys don't know Warwick. He'll probably make a guest appearance someday. But Warwick is our proud Washington Commanders, right behind the bench, VP of Managed Detection and Response. And he took Dear Steve to the game on Sunday, at which I was very jealous of watching for them on television. As far as the game, it ended about as interestingly as the last time the Bears and the Commanders.
It was a good game.
It was a good game. It got wet, though. Did you guys get wet?
So, it rained like pretty hard right up until the start of the game. And then it got really clear. And then until like it was clear until like the fourth quarter, then it started raining again, which like actually added to the drama of the moment. Right. So I didn't mind the rain at all. I'll tell you what was weird to me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like I like weather football. That's how it's like. It just feels more authentic, I guess. The one thing that threw me, and I'll throw this out there because I know this is something we can all chat about. I know Jags is not a big fan of the Chicago Bears or sport ball. I didn't know the Commanders' slogan is "Raise Hail." Like it used to be like "Hail to the Redskins," then they changed to the Commanders. So now they're doing this whole like "Raise Hail" thing. I don't think it works. Does that work? Am I wrong?
It's just confusing.
I think so too. Like raise hail. Like
well, and maybe if it was Alabama with a Southern accent, raise hail.
Hail.
I love the accent approach to this podcast.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I also appreciate a good weather game, but not when you don't have to wear makeup or other things, Steve. So it's a different experience. But yeah, I don't know that it's working. You would know best because you were in the stands. I don't get to go with work till the Detroit game, so I don't know yet.
They're really committed to it. Like they really do the raise hail thing, and is
there a hand motion?
That's a good question. I think
careful now.
There's like a lot of hands up in the air, but I'm not sure it was like an official hand motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the cybers. I see a question, and I'm going to kick this over to you, Jags, because I know you have opinions on this because I've heard you discussing this. So, question from the audience. Are threat actors abusing APIs associated with a particular LLM, or are they rolling custom LLM?
The answer is basically yes, right? Like they're doing like as in everything, right? So to some extent, there is a certain amount of abuse of existing LLMs via API. And a part of that, that really tends to fall more into like the trust and safety bucket in some ways, because ultimately, chances are if you're doing something nefarious that you're abusing somebody's API key that you were able to pick up from somewhere. And there's plenty of those floating around. But at the end of the day, that boils down to trust and safety, right? Like, is somebody going to notice that this is being abused? Can somebody burn that key? There's, the trust and safety teams at Anthropic or OpenAI or whatever can realize that something has gone amiss. And presumably you still need some kind of a jailbreak or something of the sort to get the output that you want from it, though that's really not that hard. I don't think anybody's having a hard time getting LLMs to do what they want. What you do see is also a variety of Olama servers that have been popping up, and some of them to provide dedicated services for like malicious uses of AI. And those are quite interesting because I think that's where the illusion of control kind of breaks away, is if somebody's willing to put up the infrastructure to host a model themselves. There's some really good open source models, and there are no guardrails at that point, right? It's whatever system prompt you've got and whatever you want to ask of it. So, genie's out of the bottle. I don't know that we can control this one. I think we're just kind of preparing ourselves for the onslaught.
Yeah, I think that feels right. And I think too, like with the custom part alone too, once you start getting too far on the spectrum, you got to start paying for it. And we all know how expensive this stuff is. So I think some of this is just practical too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, we're getting the notification. We are over time. I think we're doing our next one of these at OneCon, right? I think we're doing one of these live, which is going to be amazing.
Oh, Another
Roll
live.
the dice, letting us talk live and in public. All right, folks. So join us at our next one at OneCon. Hopefully that's right. If it's not, I'm sure the media folks are going to let us know. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us all. Drea, Jags, pleasure as always. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.